Hello, my name is Rob.
And I'm Rob.
And welcome to another edition of Impossible Mission. We are the Geek Show's video game thing. Lots of preamble, but if you're on YouTube, please click subscribe and that notification bell because it helps youngling channels like us.
We're younglings now, are we? Is that a Star Wars thing?
I'm getting better at the intros because once upon a time it was like a minute. Now I can get it down to solid 30. Because I remember at a quiz once, we used to do a quiz at the Geek Show, and once this woman told me off for speaking too fast, so apparently I've got that in me.
I wish I was back to solid 30.
Yeah. Anyhow, what are we talking about this week?
There are new consoles coming out, and there is also already one new console out. The Nintendo Switch has been out for a while, right?
It's coming up to its 4th year, more than just new.
I have a question, right? Because I've been watching the development of the Series X and the PS5. I've been looking at what people have been saying. I've been looking at what the developers have been saying. And it suddenly struck me, who are these consoles actually aimed at? Who is the Switch actually aimed at? Who is the who is the Series X aimed at? Who is the PS5 aimed at? You know, what is their target demographic? Because you could say, okay, yeah, all gamers are their target demographic, but are they really?
Yeah, that's a very reductive way of saying it. It's like all movies are for all movie fans, because the movie fans are broken up into so many different little subsects. Music's the same. It's like little cults, little corners that are all unique.
That's exactly what I'm saying. So who exactly are these consoles aimed at? Because if you look at the way that Sony have basically pushed the development of the PlayStation 5, their whole shtick at the moment is we're going to make it easier for developers, you know? So if you take the whole gamers out of the equation, what is the actual target market?
Yeah, can I start with the Xbox? Because honestly, Nintendo is a weakness of mine, but Microsoft have actually basically revealed everything.
Yeah.
We talked about in a previous video that Sony have announced that thing where they want to get the coding, getting up to speed with coding of the PlayStation 5 under 1 month.
Yeah.
It's unfair to say that they're the developers' console because that's the sort of information that's a games developers conference event that information was within.
Well, it wasn't GDC because GDC couldn't happen because of the lockdown.
Oh no, but it was within that context. That was what that show was tailored to.
Yeah.
So we don't know how quick it is to code on the Xbox Series X or there's much hinted at and touted Series S. So that's fine. So Xbox One, I think, was a big problem for Xbox because they didn't really aim it at gamers, did they? They had all of the stuff where it's an entertainment hub. I remember when Don Matrick crapped his pants, basically, with that company and made it an entertainment hub with sports and TV and all this stuff.
See, the thing is, that might have worked if Sony hadn't already had the PlayStation 3, right?
Well, it might have worked if they also had games too. That was the big sort of problem with Microsoft's console.
But what I mean when I say the PlayStation 3 is the PlayStation 3 is the minimum that you need these days to be able to play games, watch TV, watch Netflix, that sort of stuff.
Yeah, I mean, that's a very backwards-looking thing, because that's what most people use the console for anyway. I mean, PlayStation 2 became a success because it had a DVD player in.
Exactly. PlayStation 3 was a success because of the Blu-ray player.
This is what these things are made on.
And PlayStation 4, okay, you've got access to Netflix and Amazon Prime, Disney Plus, and all these other things on PS4, but, you know, you've also got access to those sorts of things on PS3 as well. That's why I say the PS3 is the minimum that you need. So Microsoft have always had an uphill battle when it comes to multimedia on a console.
Well, as a selling point, at least, yes, it most certainly does, which puts them in a very interesting position now, I think, because they are, with Phil Spencer, who I've talked about on Impossible Mission before. I respect the hell out of him because he's one of us. He's not an executive. He exhibits a lot of corporate transparency. He doesn't hide behind blurb. He just says how it is and what he can say.
Yeah.
I respect that a great deal. And he's basically come out and said that it's not about the console, the Xbox. It's about getting you in the infrastructure, which means getting you into Game Pass, which has got over 10 million subscribers, which is good. But at the same time, why bother buying the console then?
You could just buy a PC and get Game Pass.
Yeah, which makes it in a very difficult position. But again, they just want people in the infrastructure. But at the same time, there's people who play PC who can pay like over £1,000 on the machine, and there's people who want a console. They're very different audiences.
Yeah, I mean, the thing that struck me about the Series X was that it was aimed at people who wanted to do PC gaming but couldn't afford an actual good PC to play those games on.
It makes perfect sense. When it comes to the games, I think we're going to learn about that very, very soon as to what sort of audience Microsoft is aiming at. Because they've said themselves, Phil Spencer has said himself, well, I don't know if he did actually say this, but Xbox fans have said it anyway, at the very least, that Microsoft need new IPs.
Yeah, they need a lot.
Because what they're basically doing right now is building a dynasty off the back of Halo, Gears of War, and Forza.
See, of those, quite literally, of those, the only ones that would probably stand the test of time, Forza, right? Mm-hmm. And Halo, as long as they change certain parts of it.
You modernise it, because it is an old franchise, really.
Well, no, it's a sci-fi franchise, just like Gears, but the problem with Gears is everyone's tired of the men who look like they've been built in shipyards.
It's bro gaming, isn't it?
Yeah, it's the bro gaming, you know. And then you look, and these men need like huge muscles to wield these massive guns. Then you look at the female characters and like, okay, shouldn't they also look like the men to wield these massive guns? But they don't. And you go, there's something wrong with your design then.
Yeah, I'm not opening that can of worms because that asks.
I'm just talking about basic human body structure, okay? Regardless of gender.
Yeah, no, that's
okay?
fine. But again, what Microsoft are going to be doing going forward, it depends on what these new IPs are.
Yeah, I mean, they've tried with certain indie titles to make them exclusive, but you need big AAA kind of
Well, there's that company called The Initiative, isn't there, where apparently they're making the world's first quadruple A game, whatever that means.
quadruple A game.
Yeah, I'm not digging into that. I'm not.
What? The Initiative?
I think that's what the company was called, but let's not dig into that. I think that's deserving a video of its own.
It's like some kind of secret multinational government agency that's designed to rule the world from the shadows and is going to fight the Templars and the Freemasons and the Illuminati.
With getting it back on topic, because whatever you said there was a thing, I think Hellblade is a good sign of intent for them. Hellblade, Senua's Saga, is a great sign of intent.
Yeah, it is. Sony got first bite of the cherry with Hellblade.
It's also on Xbox now, though.
Yeah, I think that they've basically scored quite a coup with getting the second Hellblade game. Whether they can build on that is a different matter. Because I'll be honest, right? If it was me, I would have, before Focus Home became a thing that they are now, they're getting better and better and better, as we've said in a previous video. I would have got them on board with the Xbox as soon as I saw stuff to do with Greedfall or Plague Tale or games like that. I would have said, right, I want them exclusive.
The thing about Focus is they're a conglomerate, though. They're basically a collective of other publishers within them and other developers within them.
But I would have done everything I could to get them on board and have them exclusive, because those are the types of companies that can grow with the console.
So let's get back to that core question. Who is the Xbox Series X for?
Well, I've said from my perspective, it's PC gamers who can't afford good PCs.
Honestly, I think it's kind of appealing to the everyman gamer.
Really?
They're not mad on games, but they want a little bit of everything.
Right, I see what you mean. So the kind of person who wants to sit at home and maybe watch EastEnders, then maybe play a bit of FIFA, then,
No, I won't be that broad with my idea of like everyman gamer, but yeah, it's just somebody who doesn't. Well, yeah, that's not. I'm going to dig myself into a hole deeper and deeper the more I try and explain this, but people know what I mean when I say this.
Well, they don't. I think the key. I think there's one word too many in what you said there, and I think the word is gamer. I think what you should have stuck with was just the everyman. And I do see exactly what you're saying with this.
That's something for everybody in the Microsoft infrastructure, I think.
Yeah,
and I think that's what the Games Pass is absolutely pivotal in playing into.
And I think that if you're going to get a Series X, right, then you either already have bought into Microsoft's infrastructure, you already are part of it, all right, or you want to be part of it, or you want all of the other functionality that's going to come with the Series X, which we've already seen some of on the Xbox One, right? We've already seen a bunch of stuff on the Xbox One. We've seen the rise of stuff like Alexa and Google Assistant and stuff like that, right? Now, if Microsoft already have Cortana, if Cortana was built into the Series X, right, but then could actually transmit to various devices, including your TV, then that would be actually quite a coup for Microsoft because you would no longer need your Alexa or your Google Assistant. You've already got it in your console.
And it also looks like one of those devices too, which helps. Okay, moving on. PlayStation 5.
Well,
It was that far.
well, Sony have said PlayStation 5 is for the developers.
Yeah, no, but I'm not going to go into the shop when they come out and think, I don't know what console to get. Which has got the best games? I don't know, but I know that one's good for the developers. But I'm not a developer, so does that really matter? I know it helps them make better games, but that's not something which factors into the decision of someone who goes into a shop and wants to buy something.
Yeah, it doesn't, but I think what Sony's counting on now is the fact that so many people have already bought into the PlayStation architecture, that have already bought into the PlayStation infrastructure. They're already familiar with the PlayStation brand.
Gamers are fickle.
Gamers are fickle, but also gamers are creatures of habit more than anything else. And that basically is what I think Sony is counting on.
Yeah, but that's not really who it's for, is it? Sony's for, PlayStation's 5 is for creatures of habit.
Well, I think all consoles are for creatures of habit.
Yeah, exactly. So,
Well, I think what Sony's done with the PlayStation 5, the way they've designed the PlayStation 5...
We don't know that yet. All we know is what the controller looks like.
No,
you mean actual...
The actual architecture, the actual hard drive, we know the SSD runs over twice as fast as Microsoft's one, which, when it comes to game read times, actually means that developers can actually do more stuff because it's going to read the game faster. It's going to read the data faster, which means it's going to actually appear on the screen faster.
Oh, yeah, but that's implying that the Microsoft loads games slowly, which isn't true.
No, it's not. It's not true. But this is what... Remember I said to you, who's interested in teraflops, right?
Yeah.
Who cares about teraflops? The average person on the street is not going to say, this console has this many teraflops, but this console has this many teraflops. That is not a conversation that's going to happen between normal, everyday people.
And I mean, honestly, the 6 and 2 3s, as far as how they're built, one's faster in one way, one's better in the other way. One's faster in another way, the other's better in another way. They're all...
No, they aren't. That's the key thing. They aren't. They seem like that, right? But they really aren't. The hard drive read time is a massive thing for developers.
Oh, I know, but that's focusing on... I'm not talking about developers, I'm talking about the consumer end.
Yeah, but like I said, the consumers aren't interested in the actual architecture of these consoles. What they're interested in is what the consoles can do and what the consoles offer.
Not really. It's what games they have and what console the friends have.
But what we're talking about is who are these consoles aimed at in the first place. That's why I said, let's take the gamers out of it and have a look at who they're actually aimed at properly. You know, this is one of the reasons I was saying that the developers... see, this is the thing. When Sony did that GDC thing, right, they made a big play about games development. But if you look at their other stuff that they've done for like the PlayStation 4 announcement or the PlayStation 3 announcement, right, when they announced those, it was very much about the gamers. So the question struck me, what's made them change? And then I thought, hang on, we're on the fifth iteration of the PlayStation. PlayStation has been around since like the mid-90s, or the late 90s, was it? Mid-90s, yeah? So the PlayStation's been around for, what, 30 years now?
Give or take.
Okay. So it is just as embedded in the gamer's psyche as Nintendo is by now, yeah? So that means that any time a new PlayStation console comes out, it's going to have at least a good number of sales, right? That's going to happen automatically. You don't need to worry about that. And if that's the case, then Sony can actually do different things now. They're in a position where they can experiment with the console and aim it at different audiences or have a specific target market. Microsoft can't do that yet. Because if you think about it, Sony's everyman console was the PlayStation 3.
Disagree with that, but go on.
What do you think was their everyman console?
It's the PlayStation 4, the fact that the PlayStation 3 released at an incredibly high price point and it was a laughing stock kind of debunks that whole argument.
Okay, PlayStation 4 I'll go with. I'm fine with that. I'm happy to say that PlayStation 4 is the everyman console.
And the fact that it took so long for them to develop good games for it, and it was getting slaughtered by the Xbox 360 for a while until it eventually caught up.
Okay, yeah, fine. But okay, so the PlayStation 4 is the everyman console for Sony. But that means that Sony's everyman console came out a generation before Microsoft's one.
Yeah, I don't think they actually exhibited that in as good a way as possible, really, the PlayStation. But I think the PlayStation 5, it's interesting to figure out who it's actually for, because we don't know anything about it yet. Because personally, I don't think are all those signs where, Sony aren't going to be doing particularly well when it launches, because there's been news stories that they've only got access to so many being launched in a year, like 5 or 6 million. It's going to be hard to come by. It's going to be a hard sale, and they're not being entirely forthcoming with much information except blog posts. It's not a confident company from the outside in. So really, I don't think that they're changing what they are, but I do think it's complacent Sony, where it's just going to be the same as before, when they're not going to evolve, really. I mean, the controller has, but beyond that, I don't know.
See, this is the thing. I'm of a different opinion. I think Sony are using that hunger marketing strategy.
That's not true, though. It's because basically it's announced that they had plans to do things by now, but the current situation has thrown the biggest of all spanners in the works.
Yeah, it has, but I think what Sony originally intended to do was, and what they're following through now, is some kind of hunger strategy that they're using.
Again, it's not true.
Well, this is the thing. Why are people still talking about the PlayStation 5 if they're not interested?
That's not the same thing as hunger marketing.
But that's the thing. You don't talk about something that you're not interested in. It's that simple. It goes out your mind, you forget about it. Some other things are more important. But people are still dwelling on the PlayStation 5 because they want to know.
Yeah, but you're reading your own interpretation of events.
Possibly, yeah. That could be the case. But this is why I come back to who is this actually aimed at, because I really can't tell. Aside from the developers, I really can't tell.
Yeah, I don't think they're going to rock the boat in any substantial way. There's been talk of... Because PlayStation 4, I think the biggest problem with the PlayStation 4 is all of the great games are third-person action adventures.
Yeah. And with the PlayStation 5, I've seen reports of developers saying, oh, this is a revolutionary design for a console. I'm like, well, is it really?
Yeah, I mean, the games still have to be games. Doesn't matter what the console is, it still takes an inventive imagination to come up with something to make use out of that. Because look at the PlayStation 3 had 6-axis. I can count on about both my hands the games that used that. The PlayStation 4 had that touchpad, which is basically now touch from map.
That touchpad never got used as far as I know.
You can also use it to type. But basically, PlayStation sets out these incredible innovations in their mind, and nobody makes use out of them. It's the same with this. What is it like? It's not a rumble motor; it's something else. And
it's like haptic feedback and stuff like that, and they've got all sorts of stuff in there. And the
tensile stuff in the shoulder buttons. I don't think that's going to make great use out of that, because the history's there not to do that.
I don't know. I think the shoulder buttons will get a lot of use, but everything else I think won't. I think the shoulder buttons will get a lot of use in games where you have triggers, or you have balls, or you basically have brake, accelerator, that sort of thing. So racing games. Yeah. So
honestly, though, I don't think they're going to rock the boat.
No, I don't think they're going to rock the boat, because everything else about the controller will probably fall by the wayside.
And I mean, just generally, the Sony outlook for the next 7 years, what they're going to do is basically much of the same.
Yeah. See, that brings us to Nintendo. Talking about the controllers brings us to Nintendo, right?
Yeah.
Actually, quite a neat segue as well, because Nintendo found a way to use their controllers in a completely different way, didn't they?
Well, to be honest, the Nintendo Wii was like Wiimotes. It was two things you hold in your hand, you shake them, motion capture, motion response. Yeah. Wii U was basically an iPad, which was about 4 or 5 years before its time. The Switch is basically the Wii U, but you pull the two things off the side and it becomes like Wiimote. So the Switch is basically the Wii and the Wii U mashed together.
But the nice thing about the Wii, see, I think the Wii is the Switch was the Wii was designed as a family console. Anyone could use it.
Yeah, that was the ultimate in every man, because literally every man under the sun could use it.
The thing is, it didn't matter how old you were or how young you were. Everyone could use it, and that was the great thing about it.
Honestly, like Wii Sports has to go down as probably one of the most played games of all time.
Yeah, I totally agree. The Wii U, I think, was where Nintendo lost their way a little bit. They tried aiming at... See, the biggest criticism of the Wii was that you had all those gamers saying, it's not a console. And you're like, well, yes, it is. It's not a proper games console. You don't have proper games on it. So Nintendo, trying to appease the gamers, made the Wii U. Then they realized, hang on, why are we trying to appease these people who basically, they say they're fans of ours but don't support us?
Yeah, they basically try to make a console for the people who criticise them who don't buy their stuff.
Yeah, so they then turned around and said, okay, right, we're going to go back to making something for everyone.
I don't know whether that's what the Switch is.
No, but I think that was the main idea behind the Switch, was that they wanted a console for everybody. The Switch hasn't turned out like that. I think the whole idea of having the Joy-Cons and stuff like that is a great idea. Having the portability to take it round to other people's houses, that's a great idea. I think having the kickstand on the back so you can have two people playing the same game on a small screen, that's a great idea. All these things are great ideas that they managed to combine into one small but quite powerful package given its size.
Yeah.
But I think that the problem with the Switch is that the target market that Nintendo wanted has turned out not to be the target market that they ended up with.
I think, as much as I think the Switch is a great bit of kit and has a great body of games behind it, in fact, some all-time greats on there too.
Yeah, Breath of the Wild is a fantastic game.
I honestly think it's Nintendo being Nintendo and appealing to Nintendo fans.
Yeah, I think that's the problem.
Because I think there's reasons for that. One, you look at the PlayStation 4 and the Xbox One, and there's a uniformity there. You can adapt third-party games across with relative lack of pain, but third-party games for the Nintendo...
Exactly.
There was that story of FIFA... What was it, FIFA 20 was basically 19, but had like a different title slapped on it. Witcher 3 is almost a different game. So really, if you want... What you're basically admitting is, I only want the Nintendo titles, which isn't the worst thing in the world, because as far as like developers and like hit rates for like developers, Nintendo have one of the highest averages. Because when they're good, they're excellent, but they don't put a lot of stuff out, so, you know.
Yeah, but this is the thing, this is where you get right down to the actual, who's this console aimed at. See, one of the ways you can tell who a particular console's aimed at is with peripherals, right? The actual add-ons that come with the console or that you can buy because of stuff that has been developed for the console. Now, if you look at the Switch, right, you've got the Labo stuff, the cardboard.
Yeah, that annoyed me, I'll be honest, when that was released.
The thing is, that was aimed at young kids, wasn't it? It was aimed
that's
was aimed at young kids, and it was aimed at parents of young kids who basically could use the console to help their kids, make planes or cars or stuff like that. That actually had a purpose, and it was a very smart idea from Nintendo, right?
Yeah.
And then you have stuff like the Ring Fit, which I find hilarious still.
It is more successful than we ever thought it would be.
But the thing is, isn't the Ring Fit just the new Wii Fit?
Yeah, basically.
And when you look at it, it actually is quite a good piece of exercise equipment, but who is that aimed at? That's not aimed at the usual Nintendo fans.
No, it's kind of oddball, isn't it? An odd duck.
And that's why I say the Switch was intended to be an everyman console, but it ended up being just another Nintendo console for Nintendo fans. That's how it's ended up.
It's the best innovation on that idea of Nintendo for Nintendo, but it's still Nintendo for Nintendo.
Yeah, but what Nintendo originally wanted was another everyman console like the Wii.
Yeah.
Which is why you have stuff like Nintendo Labo and why you have the Ring Fit and stuff like that. And I think that's one of the key things when it comes to figuring out who a particular console's aimed at is when it comes to the peripherals, when it comes to... I mean, if you look at the PlayStation 4, right, PlayStation 3 had the PlayStation Move and the camera, right?
I tell you, yeah.
Yeah. PlayStation 4 had PSVR.
Yeah.
But still very much aimed at people who wanted...
The hardcore... I mean, I hate using that term for gamers because it's so elitist, but the hardcore gamer.
Yeah. I mean, if you look at the Xbox 360, that tried to be a multimedia machine and failed.
No, the 360 was just a pure console.
No, it tried to be a multimedia machine. That's why it had the DVD.
Xbox One.
No, the 360 tried. Trust me, that's...
Oh, yeah, because they had the HD DVD add-on, didn't they? And they're lost in the Blu-ray battle.
Exactly. The Xbox One was more successful as a multimedia console, but still, what was the core market for the Xbox One?
I can't remember any peripherals for the Xbox One, I'll be honest.
You see what I mean? But then you go on to...
I remember what controllers they have. Like the Elite is probably the one that stands out the most, the Elite controller.
Yeah, but the Elite controller was clearly aimed at hardcore gamers.
Yeah, like £150 for a controller? Of course it is, yeah.
I'll be honest, of all the Xbox One controllers, Xbox One peripherals, that's the only one that people really remember. Whereas with the PlayStation 4, you actually had a proper peripheral that wasn't a controller in the PSVR, didn't you?
And it is a controller. It's in a really... You can sort of tie yourself up in logic circles to call it a controller, but yeah.
From my perspective, the PSVR was just a glorified monitor.
Yeah. It's how you interact with a game, which for me is... But it's simultaneously a controller and a monitor.
Yeah, but that's the whole thing, you know? How you interact with the game is what defines who that console's aimed at. If your interaction with the game is... if a console has multiple different ways of interacting with games, like the Nintendo does, like the Switch does, like the Wii did. The Wii had so many different ways to interact with it, didn't it?
I guess, yeah.
And as far as I'm aware, only one other console had almost as many ways of interacting with it, which was the Dreamcast.
Which had way too many.
Fishing rod, the maracas, the train controller. You had arcade sticks. You had normal controllers. You had the dance mats. You had karaoke microphones. You had the webcam, the mouse and keyboard. With the Switch, it's an everyman console that hasn't quite achieved its goal. It's still in that Nintendo for Nintendo.
It's still super successful, and it is the most successful Nintendo thing.
Yeah,
in a long time.
But I don't think it's going to reach the heights of the Wii.
No, I mean, let's be honest. I don't think Nintendo are a million miles away from their next console because it's about 4 years old. The Switch.
I think that the next console is coming soon. I think possibly we'll start hearing about it next year.
Yeah, I don't think it'll be a Switch Pro. Because they made that mistake with the Wii U, they need to have a completely new naming scheme so people know it's a new thing.
Yeah, I think with Sony, aside from knowing that it's aimed at developers, in terms of the consumer market, it's the jury's still out. I think that Sony are aiming purely at gamers again, as they always have.
People who identify as gamers.
I think that's who they're aiming for. Because, again, we come back to the force of habit. And I think Sony is just as guilty of being subject to that as gamers themselves. We've seen that throughout Sony's history with the way their consoles are made, with the actual system that they use.
Yeah, and Microsoft and the Xbox One X is the everyman. So I think they've all got the sort of own little hole in the world, in the market. Yeah, that's the word. Niche. Americans. Niche. Not niche. Niche. Yeah.
You don't walk around saying, my name is Nicholas.
Yeah. So that's all we have time for on this week's edition of the show. So thanks for listening, and we'll see you next time.